Hey man, welcome back to Man Time. Today's episode we are looking at this Proline little wireless Tach. This is about the cheapest one I could find that actually had some reviews that it actually works. I've also heard that it's the exact same one as the like $80 steel wireless Tach. I've got a little wire on it, but I guess you don't need that. Let's dig into this and figure out if this thing works, how it works, and then try it on some saws. Welcome to Man Time. So I guess we'll start with the instructions, right? Just in case you lose yours, you can refer back to this video, and hopefully that'll help you out. But basically the settings on here are 1P, 1R, that is 1 pulse per 1 revolution, and that's going to be most of your 2-stroke stuff, because with one, it's firing on every stroke. 1 pulse per 2 revolutions, that's going to be your 4-stroke, because on 1 stroke it's the the power stroke, and then the other stroke it's exhausting the exhaust gases through the valves. And then you got 2P1R, and that's going to be two pulses per 1 revolution. And some of the like scavenging engines will do that. A lot of the newer 4-stroke stuff, it'll just fire, every revolution. So even though it's exhausting through the exhaust valve, that exhaust valve's open, that spark plug is going to fire anyway to burn off any additional, gases, flammable gases in the exhaust as the exhaust is rolling out. So I mean that's a good thing. It has all 3 of those, so you can measure basically everything. Let's see here. Yeah, other than that, I mean, I just want to throw the instructions away, right? I'm a man. I don't need this. But you might want to learn about some of this stuff, and you can read the directions at your own leisure. There. This is the back side of it, and just kind of shows some different configurations. But we are going to try it wirelessly, because that's the whole point, right? We want to measure our stuff like wirelessly. So I've got 8 chainsaws. There are some chainsaws that sound, really mean, and, watching some of my videos and watching some other people's videos, it's like, man, I really need another data point, even for my own saws, to figure out, if they're actually running as hot as they sound. Because some saws, and I'll show you here, I've got that little Holtzforma 200T. That thing just sounds nasty, because I took out the baffle in it, and it's like, bah, But then there's other saws, like my 440, where it's kind of toned down, that exhaust mod with the pipe in the front, it's kind of toned down, and same with like the 036. Some saws are just a little bit more difficult to kind of hear where you're tuning to. I always tune to like the gargle, the 4-stroking, where it's a little bit rich, and typically that's what you want to do anyway, right? You don't just want to tune it with the Tach and then say, okay, my saw is good to go from here until forever. As the humidity changes, as the temperature changes, your saw is going to need to be tuned if it's a normal, carbureted saw. So you want to do that anyway, because running that 440 in the last video and a short that I did in some wood, it started off like really rich, right? And then by the second cut, it had leaned out, and it was tuned just perfect. So that's, I like to start a little bit rich, and then as they warm up, they're gonna get more lean. So you don't want to use the Tach, set it and forget it. That's just not how these machines work. But if you want a good baseline data and see really what the saw is doing, and you can't get a good feel for it by ear, a Tach is the way to go, right? So that's what we're looking at. All right, let's fire up a saw and see what idle is. And you know what? I'm gonna play a little game. I'm gonna fire up. Let's just fire up. I've got an 036 right here. I'm gonna fire it up, get it warmed up, and then guess like what it sounds like it's doing with it 4-stroking at the top end for RPMs, and then we'll see how close I am and trial out this wireless tachometer. I guess the first thing we'll do is just figure out how this thing works, right? So hit it, and it turns on after about a second. And then it says you hit it twice to see where we're at. Alright, we're on 1P1R. That's going to be our 2-stroke. You got 1P2R, that's going to be our 4-stroke. And then you've got a 4-stroke, I guess, firing with every revolution. And I don't really get that one, because I think that's the same as that one, right? Anyways, so that was just clicking through. Again, double click to get into that menu. And then it says after 10 seconds, it should return to measuring RPMs. There we go. And then to shut it off, hold down the button for about 3 to 4 seconds, and boom, we're off. There's no replaceable battery on it. This is all really nice epoxy, sealed unit. Looks really pretty nice. Okay, let's test it on some saws. Another problem I have on these steel saws is the idle speed. So it's going to be good to see, what the idle is doing. Yeah, sometimes it's just hard to get the idle set just right. And you want to, I guess, the idle is somewhere around 3,000. So let's see where this 036 is at. Well, I forgot to guess on that one, but I knew it was running like really rich. For being warmed up, that is just way too rich. So we're going to turn it about a quarter turn in on the high jet. That's going to increase our RPMs, reduce our fuel, hopefully reduce that 2-stroke. So we'll do that here. I'm going to tune it in to kind of where it just starts to gargle, and then we'll see if I can guess, where it's at on the high end. I'm gonna guess that is a lot closer to like 13.8. I'm gonna guess 13.8. Let's see what we got here. Now the one thing, I don't think this holds like high RPM, right? So you actually have to be looking at it. I may go back to the manual and check it. I saw it get up to 13.2 there for a second, so not as high as I guess I thought it was going. So again, another good example of why it's good to have a Tach. So again, the steels are just a little bit harder to kind of hear that top end range. Let me fire up the Wolf. You know what, let me fire up hammers. I've got a 365 big bore that sounds like it's just going to blow up every time I use it. Let's fire that one up and see what we're pulling RPM-wise on that one. So going back to the manual, I did find where it'll actually hold max RPM while it's on and doing this test. So you hit the button once and it shows max RPM, and look here, 14,220. So I was guessing 13.8. It was reading like 13.2 at the high, but having that ability to go back and read the max RPM of 14, I may need to richen it back up a bit, you know, for these hotter days, because right now it's kind of cool, it's kind of humid. I'm probably going to want to richen that back up. So excellent feature on here. To rest the max RPM, hold the button for 8 seconds. It'll return to the main interface after about 25 seconds without any operation. So let's click it once. We've got our high RPM still held. Let's hold it for 8 seconds. Okay, and then it resets to 0. Still on that 2 RPM though. And then it says 25 seconds, and it'll go back to reading the Tach. Alright, so right here we can go back. I mean, that sounded rich to me, and it was rich. But if we go into our 2 RPM, we're 11,000, right at 11,000. So let's lean it out and see if I can lean it. We'll go about a half turn in on high, and we'll just leave the air filter off here. And kind of see where we go from here. Alright, so that was a half turn in on high jet. Let's see where that got us. Alright, max RPM right there at 13,000. So even though, you know, it sounds just wicked fast, the 036 was actually going much faster at 14 at max. So, well, I guess we'll see how far we can push it. Now that's about as far as I would go with it. I don't think I would lean it out anymore, but again, that's just because the way it sounds. Now we have some actual data to make some tuning decisions, and then we can get a better feel for our saw, right? We can figure out what sound is what RPM and have that as a data point in our head with a Tach like this. Alright, so we're another about an 1/8 of a turn, quarter turn in on the high jet. Let's see where that gets us. Man, this is a nice nice little tool, isn't it? Alright, 13.5, 13.460. So I mean, that's really as high as I want to go on this thing. But now I know, you know, with some of these, the gargle just isn't there, especially with pipes and different stuff. You know, this one's got this dual outlet muffler on it. And again, it's hard to tell the RPMs. Let's do this for one more saw. I've got the first saw that I ported with a degree wheel, hammers. And that sucker, I mean, it's kind of the same way, but it's got the same pipe on it too. You know, so it's hard to tell really where it's at. So let's do that one. And then let's try one more saw, and let's see if I can figure out where this one is revving at the high end. Now again, this one, sometimes when it gets up there, it feels like, well, it feels like my dirt bike, right? There's like no end to the RPM. It just goes and goes and goes. So I've got it warmed up here. Let's see if we can figure out where it's idling, where it's going to the high end at, and see if we got it tuned right. So I've got it tuned. I was playing with it there before I started it up for you there. It's tuned probably right about where it's supposed to be at idle, right about 3,000, somewhere in there. And from the sound of that, I would say that's going like 13.5, 14, maybe even higher. Let's see what the Tach has to say about it. Let me just reset it here, make sure that I've got it where it's going to be picking up high idle. Okay, let's fire it up and see what we got here. Alright man, that's taking a look at our Tach here. We had about 3,000 RPM on the idle for that one. Oh man, here we go. 14,140. So when it is screaming like it screams, it's definitely getting there. I may want to have it a little bit lower. No wonder that saw is just so hot. I bet I could tune hammers in to be that aggressive also, but I don't think I want to either. Man, that's a good running saw. That's using cheap parts. First saw, I mean, I tried to go pretty hot with it. I went like above and beyond kind of what everybody said was going to be a good reliable work saw. Took it to about 160 duration on high and low, and about 23 degrees of blowdown I think on that one. Did some machine work to it. It's up there. Really low squish. Just over 20,000. So I mean, blueprinted just the way you would expect a good hot work saw to be, and it shows in the data now, right? We have a data point we can use and tune to our ear based on what we know the RPM is. So it's a pretty neat trick, pretty neat tool to have. So Proline wireless Tach works real well, has a good refresh rate, and it doesn't need to be like right there on the plug wire. And this little wire hanging out the bottom of it, I don't see that as any sort of detriment to its use or something you would count against it. Pretty neat little tool. So anyways, if you're looking for one of these, I got this one on eBay. I'm sure there's other places you could get them, Amazon or some of the online saw shops, whatever you want to do there. I'm not sponsored by anybody, so this is just me getting a tool and showing it to you. Anyways, if you like this type of stuff, make sure to like and subscribe and get out there, have you some man time too.